How did it happen that such a seemingly simple dish as fish and chips became one of the national dishes in the UK, and there are even whole restaurants that specialize in it? Where did the famous English breakfast come from? How often do the English drink tea? And what should a real English tea party be like? What dishes used in competitions on the water? And why is the most famous type of English beer called ale? That's what we have to find out in today's video. The well-known fish and chips is one of the essential dishes of British cuisine, and the unofficial national dish in Britain is fish fillet in batter served with French fries. Most often, cod is used to prepare this dish, but you can also use cider or flounder. In addition to flour and baking powder, ale is also needed, English beer, which we'll talk about a little later. All ingredients are mixed until the consistency of a thick dough. Fillets cut into pieces of 2 to 3 centimeters, starch is poured, then dipped into the dough. Then the pieces are fried in boiling vegetable oil at a temperature of 190 degrees until golden brown. There is also a dish of scraps and fish, which is made from leftover dough floating in deep frying. But the dish has a dubious reputation, and you need to think twice before trying it. Potatoes are cut into cubes and fried until golden brown. In southern and central England, potatoes are served with salt and malt vinegar, and in northern and eastern Scotland with salt and savory sauce. Long ago, such a dish was sold on the streets and was wrapped in an old issue of English newspapers. Now it can be found not only in street tents, but also in cafes and even restaurants. Harry Ramsden's is a chain of restaurants that specializes in this dish. Despite the fact that fish and chips are considered a British dish, it was not invented by the British at all. Jewish refugees from Portugal taught the English how to cook fish in batter, who gradually spread their love for the dish. In the 1800s, it actively began to be on sale in local eateries. Even the writer Charles Dickens also wrote about it in a book about Oliver Twist. As for fried potato slices, initially the tradition of frying in oil appeared in France, on a territory of modern Belgium. In England, the dish was getting popular already in the 19th century thanks to small family businesses that sold food on the street. Eateries where it was possible to order such a dish began to open and spread in foggy Albion in the 1860s. Especially, this food helped out during the war years. Fish was not as expensive as meat, but it helped to cope with hunger for a long time. During the Second World War, food was given out on coupons, but not fish and chips. Fish and chips was intended mainly for the military, who could eat right on the road in trucks. The appearance of the first fast food deliveries is associated with the fish and chips. In England back in 1935, someone came up with the idea of delivering a fish to homes on a motorcycle. A full English breakfast, or fried up, is a traditional breakfast in the UK and Ireland, including bacon, sausage, eggs, tea or coffee. The name varies depending on the region where it is used: full Irish, full Scottish, full Welsh. Such a breakfast is so popular in the country that many cafes offer to taste it not only in the morning but also throughout the day. It appeared during the Middle Ages, then most often there were two meals, breakfast and dinner. Breakfast consisted of the same ale and bread, sometimes with a piece of cheese or meat. Generous breakfasts were served only on holidays. And in the Victorian era, English breakfast became an integral part of any party or event. Breakfasts were leisurely, always using glassware and silverware to impress the guests. French newspapers were served for breakfast. There is such a tradition now. A lot of Englishmen read the latest news during breakfast. At the same time, it is practically forbidden during lunch or dinner. At first, English breakfast became popular among representatives of high society. They started doing it much earlier, around 9 in the morning. Even among the working class, English breakfast has become widespread. A heavy breakfast helped the workers stay energetic for a long time. Traditional tea ceremonies. For the British, a tea party is not just a pause to warm up with hot tea, but it is a whole ceremony with its own traditions. Tea is given special attention here. The type of tea is not only important, but also the dishes from which it will be drunk, and even the size of cakes. They drink it several times a day, at first immediately after waking up at 6-7 in the morning. Some people even drink it sitting in the bed. The second cup of tea is at the time of the English breakfast, around 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. It is important that the tea be with lemon or with something else that can cheer up for the whole day. Next, tea is drunk during lunch, sometimes cold. At 4 o'clock comes the so-called tea break in the middle of the working day. And in an hour, 5 o'clock, is another tea party to which almost everyone gathers, regardless of the weather and other factors that could interfere with the tradition. Of course, over time, tea traditions begin to be observed less and less, but you can still meet Englishmen who drink tea strictly by the hour. Once upon a time, the tea ceremony was a whole holiday at which aristocratic families arranged dances in the gardens. One of the features of the tea ceremonies in England is the addition of warm milk to tea. According to one of the lesser-known versions, this was done so that the cup would not crack from boiling water. According to a more common version, tea used to be brewed very strong and milk was added to soften the taste, making it more mild. Tea is usually served with toast, sandwiches, cakes, and cookies. Everyone will find something to their taste. Prince William loves McVitie cookies most of all. When it is dipped into a cup, the tea gets an unusual taste thanks to malt extract. Yorkshire Pudding. In 1737, in the book The Whole Duty of a Woman, a recipe for pudding on drained fat was first published, which is known as Yorkshire Pudding. Its other name then was dripping pudding. A cook from northern England came up with the idea of using the fat that flowed onto the pan to make pudding while the meat was being fried. Now this dish is the main part of the English lunch on Sunday. Once they were independent dishes and were served both sweet and salty. The Yorkshire town of Broaden has its own pudding festival on the water. These are competitions that were invented by a certain Simon Thackeray in 1999. Boats are made from the same ingredients as the puddings themselves, from flour, water and eggs. Then they are varnished so they do not melt in the water. Children control pudding boats with paddles and arrange races on them. Ale is a traditional English beer, got its name from a Proto-Indo-European root and literally means intoxication. During the Middle Ages, this drink was especially revered and, like bread, was a product of the first necessity. The recipe for ale has been known since the 12th century and since then has passed from year to year and has become the oldest drink in England. Till the 15th century, hops were not used in brewing in Britain, but since 1412 raw materials had been imported to England, the British would begin to grow their hops from the beginning of the 16th century. The composition of ale is similar to monastery beers, and real British ale can be found in any British pub. There are several types of English ale: pale ale, malt ale. The first type is light variety with a high hop content. The second is a copper-colored drink with a low alcohol content. There is a so-called Indian Pale Ale and Indian Ale. It was invented for use during long trips around the British Empire. The porter variety was created by brewer Ralph Harwood in the early 18th century. It is believed that his name was given because of the location of the Harwood Brewery. It was located in the Greater London market area, where there were many loaders who liked this kind of beer. And a loader in British is a porter. Another type is English barley ale, or is also called barley wine. Strong beer from amber to dark copper color is ideal for the winter season. Barley beer originated in England in the middle of the 14th century, when the war with France interrupted the import of wine. Brewers experimented with pale malt to create a strong beer aged in wooden barrels from a couple of months to several years. Beer had fruit characteristics and served as an alternative to wine. Another type is stout, a beer using burnt malt characterized by a rich taste with notes of cocoa, coffee or toffee. Stout acquires a characteristic color from dark brown to black due to the addition of well-roasted barley. Friends, that is all for today. If you liked the video, smash the like button, share in the comments which point of the planet you would like to go and which country's dishes to try. Write down what you are interested in learning, facts, events, sites. This helps me plan trips and shoot videos on the most interesting topics.